Most mysterious tourist disappearances in Alaska that are impossible to explain. In the vast, beautiful, and unforgiving wilderness of Alaska, thousands of people have vanished. Since 1988, more than 16,000 have been reported missing, a rate more than double the national average. Some cases are explained by the harsh environment, but many are not. These are the stories of tourists who walked into the wild and were never seen again, leaving behind mysteries that are truly impossible to explain. Section 1. The Land of the Lost. There's a place in Alaska, a vast, invisible boundary on the map, that's earned a chilling reputation. It stretches from Anchorage to Juneau and all the way up to the remote northern outpost of Utqiagvik. This immense wilderness is known as the Alaska Triangle. Some estimates suggest that since the 1970s, over 20,000 people, pilots, hikers, tourists, and locals, have disappeared inside its borders. It's no secret that Alaska's missing persons rate is consistently the highest in the United States. This is, without a doubt, a land that can kill. At more than twice the size of Texas, Alaska is a colossal territory of extremes. It has 17 of the nation's 20 highest peaks, over 100,000 glaciers, and vast, untamed forests. The weather can turn on a dime, from clear skies to blinding blizzards. The magnetic declination here is so severe it can throw a compass off by as much as 30 degrees, sending even seasoned navigators spiraling into oblivion. And then, there's the wildlife. Encounters with grizzly bears and moose can be deadly. Hypothermia is a silent, year-round killer, able to claim a life even in the summer. These logical, rational explanations account for so many of the state's tragedies. People get lost. They succumb to the elements. They have terrible luck with animals. These are the sad but understandable stories of life and death on the last frontier. But they don't explain everything. They don't explain how a plane with some of America's most powerful men on board could just vanish from a clear sky. They don't explain how a runner in a crowded, monitored race could simply cease to exist in a matter of minutes. And they don't explain the countless other cases where the only clues left behind just make the mystery deeper, pointing not to a simple accident, but to something far stranger. These are the cases that haunt investigators and families, the stories that have become Alaskan lore. These are the disappearances that are impossible to explain. Section 2. Case 1. The Vanished Lawmakers. October 16, 1972. A twin-engine Cessna 310 sits on an Anchorage tarmac, prepping for a routine flight to the state capital, Juneau. On board are 4 men. The pilot, Don Johns, an aide, Russell Brown, and 2 of the most powerful politicians in the country, Alaska's freshman Congressman Nick Begich and U.S. House Majority Leader Hale Boggs. Sr. Boggs was a political giant, an influential figure who had also served on the Warren Commission, the group that investigated JFK's assassination. He was in Alaska campaigning for Begich, who was locked in a tight re-election race. The plane took off from Anchorage just before 9 a.m. A few minutes later, the pilot had a routine check-in. Then, there was only silence. The Cessna, with its high-profile passengers, was gone. It never made it to Juneau. What came next was one of the largest search and rescue operations in American history. For 39 agonizing days, the Alaskan wilderness was scoured. 50 civilian planes and 40 military aircraft, including advanced spy planes, combed a search grid of 325,000 square miles, an area bigger than the state of Maine. They flew for more than 3,600 hours, desperate for any sign. They found nothing. Not one piece of wreckage. Not an oil slick on the water. Not a shred of clothing. The plane, along with Hale Boggs, Nick Begich, Russell Brown, and Don Johns, had vanished as if it had never existed. The total lack of evidence was baffling. A recent state law required the plane to carry an emergency locator transmitter, or ELT, designed to send out a distress signal on impact. But no signal was ever heard. The National Transportation Safety Board later concluded the aircraft didn't have a working ELT on board. A portable one belonging to the pilot was later found at an airfield in Fairbanks. This only deepened the confusion. Without facts, conspiracy theories began to bloom. Boggs's role on the Warren Commission, where he'd been a vocal critic of the single bullet theory, fueled speculation that this was a political assassination disguised as a crash. Rumors of a mob-planted bomb also circulated, and years later a low-level gangster even claimed he transported a bomb for the plane. But these are just theories, with no hard proof. The official investigation concluded the pilot likely encountered icing conditions and lost control, but that was just a best guess in the face of zero evidence. On December 29, 1972, all four men were declared legally dead. In a strange political twist, both Begic and Boggs were re-elected by their voters that November. The disappearance of Hale Boggs and Nick Begic became the foundational mystery of the Alaska Triangle, the case that first brought the region's unnerving talent for making things disappear to national attention. How does a modern plane, carrying powerful leaders, just get erased from the sky without a trace? The search was colossal, but the absolute lack of any wreckage is the case's most haunting fact, a cold, hard reality that defies all logic. It's a mystery that, over half a century later, is no closer to being solved. Case 2. The racer who ran into thin air. For most places, a mountain race is about athleticism. In Seward, Alaska, it's a brutal tradition. The Mount Marathon race is one of North America's oldest and toughest foot races. Every 4th of July, runners scramble 3,022 feet up the muddy, rock-strewn face of the mountain looming over town, and then fly back down. It's organized chaos, with thousands of spectators watching the brave, or foolish, souls who take on the challenge. In 2012, a 65-year-old Anchorage man named Michael Lemaitre decided to enter. He was a family man with a Ph.D., known for his community work counseling children of 9/11 victims and helping veterans. He wasn't an experienced mountain runner, but he loved the challenge. Race day weather was miserable, cold, rainy, and foggy. Michael, wearing just shorts and a t-shirt, started his climb. He was slow but steady, soon falling to the back of the pack. As hours passed, most runners were already heading down. Michael was still climbing. Near the top, just 200 feet from the turnaround point, a race official saw him. It was around 6 p.m., still light out. The official said he could keep going to the top. He then headed down, expecting Michael, the last runner, to be right behind him. He wasn't. Michael Lemaitre was never seen again. At first, no one panicked. Maybe he'd turned back. But as evening fell and he didn't cross the finish line, a terrifying truth set in. He was gone. The search that followed was incredibly intense. Helicopters with advanced heat-seeking infrared technology scanned the mountain. Dozens of search and rescue experts, state troopers, and volunteers on the ground combed the area. They brought in search dogs, including cadaver dogs. They found absolutely nothing. Not a single trace. That's what makes this so baffling. Michael Lemaitre didn't vanish in some remote wilderness. He disappeared from the middle of a crowded, 3-mile race course on a mountain that's in full view of the town. People were everywhere, yet no one saw him fall. No one heard a cry for help. Searchers found no footprints leaving the trail. No scrap of his shirt. No sign of a struggle. Bears live in the area, but there was no sign of an attack. The mountain has dangerous cliffs, but any fall would have left some kind of evidence: disturbed ground, broken plants, or a body. The complete lack of clues stunned even the most seasoned rescuers. One theory is that the race officials at the summit had already packed up and left. Michael, who'd never run the course, might have gotten disoriented in the fog, missed the turnaround, and wandered into more dangerous terrain where he fell or died of exposure. It's logical, but it still doesn't explain why the massive search turned up nothing at all. Michael Lemaitre was declared legally dead later in 2012. His family, left without answers, searched on their own. His daughter climbed the mountain and engraved a rock at the top. "I love you, Dad." The race created new safety rules, like cut-off times, because of what happened. The mystery of Michael Lemaitre is a terrifying reminder that in Alaska, you don't have to be deep in the wilderness to be taken by it. He vanished in plain sight, swallowed by the mountain in the middle of a crowd, leaving behind an impossible question: how does a person just disappear? These stories are just a fraction of the mysteries hidden in the Alaskan wilderness. If you find these unexplained disappearances as fascinating as we do, take a moment to subscribe and click the bell icon so you don't miss our next investigation. Case 3. The Ghosts of Nome. The town of Nome sits on the edge of the Bering Sea, a remote outpost surrounded by endless tundra. It's a place that attracts rugged people, those looking to test themselves against the wild. Joseph Baldarz was one of them. In 2016, the 36-year-old outdoorsman moved from Texas to work as a law clerk in Nome. He was known as dependable and an experienced hiker, someone who respected the land. On June 27, 2016, Joseph didn't show up for work. His colleagues knew this was out of character and reported him missing. Troopers found his truck, unlocked, at mile 44 of the Nome Council Highway. His fishing gear was still inside. It looked like he'd gone for a quick hike or run. A driver had seen him by his truck on Saturday, June 25th. His girlfriend last heard from him that morning. After that, he was gone. A huge search was launched, involving Nome Search and Rescue, the Coast Guard, the National Park Service, and volunteers. They brought in planes, helicopters, and trained search dogs. The area around mile 44 is elevated and open, but it's also heavily populated by bears. For days, they searched. They found nothing. No clues. No remains. No sign of what happened to Joseph Baldarz. By July 6th, with no new leads, the official search was suspended. A year later, a jury declared him legally dead, but admitted they were unsure how it happened. His family has long suspected foul play, a theory shared by their private investigator. An investigation did reveal his roommate had allegedly lied to police about his whereabouts that weekend, but no charges were ever filed. The case of Joseph Baldarz is haunting, not just because it's unresolved, but because it's part of a disturbing pattern around Nome. The region has a dark history of mysterious disappearances. Just 4 years after Joseph vanished, in August 2020, a 33-year-old Indigenous woman named Florence Okpiluk disappeared from the same area. She was last seen leaving a tent on West Beach. Like Baldarz, a massive search turned up nothing. Her disappearance is part of the tragic crisis of missing and murdered Indigenous peoples, or MMIP, a devastating issue across Alaska, where cases involving Native people often get less attention. The disappearances of Joseph Baldarz and Florence Okpiluk show the many dangers of the Alaskan wilderness. Some are lost to the elements or animal attacks, but others may be victims of human predators who use the vast landscape to hide their crimes. In a place as remote as Nome, it can be terrifyingly easy to get away with murder. The ghosts of the lost linger over the town, their stories unfinished, their fates unknown. Section 3. the unexplainable. When faced with so many disappearances, it's human nature to look for answers. And Alaska offers plenty of logical ones. The terrain is a maze of mountains and hidden crevasses. The weather is a deadly, fickle force. The sheer size of the wilderness makes finding one person like finding a specific molecule in a haystack. Add in the danger of bears and hypothermia, and it's no wonder people go missing. But the cases we've looked at, and so many others, just refuse to fit into those neat boxes. Hale Boggs and Nick Begich's disappearance wasn't a lost hiker. It was a modern aircraft that was erased from the sky, leaving behind a search area the size of a state and not a single shred of evidence. Michael Lemaitre didn't vanish in some remote valley. He disappeared from a crowded, 3-mile race course, under the eyes of an entire town, in just a few minutes. The probability of vanishing without a trace in such a monitored environment is almost zero. Joseph Baldarz wasn't a naive tourist. He knew the risks. He vanished near a road, leaving his truck behind as if he planned to be right back. The complete lack of evidence in a case with hints of foul play points to a mystery much deeper than a simple accident. When logic fails, people turn to the illogical, to folklore born from the land itself. For centuries, the indigenous Tlingit and Tsimshian peoples have told stories of the Kushtaka, or land otter man. They are said to be terrifying, shape-shifting creatures that live in the forests and near water. Legends say the Kushtaka are masters of illusion. They can mimic the cries of a baby or a woman to lure victims into the woods. What happens next depends on the story. Sometimes they tear their victims apart. Other times, they steal their soul and transform them into another Kushtaka, forced to wander the cold wilderness forever. Are these just campfire stories to keep kids from wandering off? Or are they an ancient attempt to explain something that has plagued this land for millennia? To explain the unexplainable? Other theories point to stranger forces. Some speculate about powerful energy vortexes in the Alaska Triangle, much like the Bermuda Triangle, that could interfere with electronics and even human perception. The magnetic anomalies that throw off compasses are a scientific fact, but these theories suggest forces we don't yet understand. We're not presenting these theories as fact. We're presenting them as proof of the profound mystery of Alaska. When person after person disappears without a single logical clue, the human mind grasps for any explanation, no matter how strange. The legends of the Kushtaka and theories of energy vortexes are what's left when every rational possibility has been exhausted. They are the stories a land tells about itself when it refuses to give up its secrets. We've looked at the case of two powerful politicians whose plane simply fell out of the sky. We've examined the impossible story of a marathon runner who vanished into thin air from a crowded mountainside. And we've touched on the haunting disappearances that plague remote communities like Nome. These stories, and thousands more like them, create the chilling mosaic of the Alaska Triangle. The easy answer is to blame the vast, unforgiving wilderness. And for many, that's the tragic truth. Alaska is a land of incredible beauty, but also incredible danger, and it doesn't suffer fools or bad luck well. But that doesn't explain all of them. It doesn't explain the total lack of evidence after massive searches. It doesn't explain people disappearing from seemingly safe, populated areas. And it doesn't explain the cases where the few clues that are found only make the mystery more unsettling. The truth is, for many of the thousands who have vanished into the wilds of Alaska, we will never know what happened. Their stories have no final chapter. They just end. They leave behind grieving families, haunted investigators, and a lingering, unanswerable question that echoes through the vast, silent valleys of the last frontier. What do you think happened to these lost souls? Are these just tragic accidents in an unforgiving land? Or is there something more at play in the Alaska Triangle? Let us know your theories in the comments below. What you think about this story? Write in the comment your opinion. On my channel, you can watch other revenge or cheating stories. See you soon, my dear viewer.